Okay, I wanted to do a video on the idle air control valve, also known as the air valve or auxiliary air valve on the 22 REs, so like the 84 to 88, well actually it would be 85 to 88 Toyota 4Runners. I was having trouble with my idle and I could not find a lot of information. It was like bits and pieces. So this is a video of what I have learned from different videos and reading. Take it with a grain of salt, add to it if you guys know more than I do. But this is your idle air control valve, and what it does is when your engine is cold and needs extra air to get warmed up when you're first doing a cold start, and you're at idle, so your butterfly, your throttle plate is closed, this valve will help you get air from your throttle body through this hose here, through the valve itself, and then sends it to another hose to the back of your intake so that you're getting enough air while you're at idle with your throttle plate closed. Inside your throttle body, there's a hole about this position on the right lower area that this hose hooks to. And the way that the valve works is when it's cold, and so besides the two air hoses that you have routing air from your throttle body to the back of the intake, you have two coolant hoses that circulate coolant just basically in a loop through this thing to help warm it up. So what happens is when this is warm, let's say, because it's warm right now, you're going to see that the valve is almost closed because it doesn't need as much air. When it's cold outside, this little crescent shape should be a lot bigger. This hole should be almost all the way open. So when it's cold, your engine starts, it's trying to pull air, it needs more air, it's going to pull air through this hole, this hose, through this open valve, send your air to your intake. Meanwhile, your coolant is flowing through here, and as the coolant gets warmer, it heats up this bimetal, whatever you want to call it. There's a tab in here. And as that gets warm, it bends, and it will close that hole to the appropriate, crescent shape. I don't know if it closes completely. I've never seen mine completely closed. So you start, when it's cold, you start with it open, your coolant starts flowing through, warming the valve. When your engine gets warm enough, this thing will have closed, so you don't need as much air. And then your engine is just going to run however it runs once it's warmed up. There's also a plug at the back that is like a more active source of electrical heat. That plug will heat this up too. And then the coolant sort of like passively heats it. So when it's warm, it's closed, you don't need as much air. When it's cold, it should be open all the way to allow air to go from your throttle body into your intake. And that just kind of is illustrated in this thing here. To test it to see if it's working, you're gonna just hook up your ohm meter, just like it shows in the picture here, to your two little terminals, and you should have a resistance of 39 to 59. If so, it means your electrical connections are working good. If you still suspect this thing isn't working right, you can always take out, and of course these are not the appropriate hoses. Mine were shot, so I'm just using random hoses. Just take out the hoses, check and make sure they're clean, blow some air through them, whatever. You can do that on your coolant hoses too. Same thing through here, you can kind of clean that out, maybe take a little pipe cleaner down in there. And then the other thing you can do is you take your screws out. Hold on one second. And don't lose these. And I mean, some people say you're quote unquote not supposed to, but if it's not working, they don't make these anymore. It's a last ditch effort. Take it apart and try to clean it. You can take off your little spring. Mine was really full of carbon. I have already cleaned it, but it was like really black. But you see your little mechanisms in there. This is your little bimetal tab. So as that bends, you're gonna see how that closes. and when it's cold it bends the other way and it's more open. So you can just check and make sure everything's kind of moving, nothing's seized up, clean it, put it back together, test it with your ohm meter, clean out your hoses. And the definitive way that I feel you can make sure it's working is, of course, if it's at room temperature and you have your little crescent, you know it's closed, right? Or as closed as it might get. Then what you can do, and I have done this and I've confirmed that this one works, put it in your freezer for an hour or so. When you take it out of the freezer, when it's ice cold to the touch, that hole should be very open. Maybe not all the way, but it should be really open. Then you just leave it back on your counter for another hour or two, let it warm back up, and you should check again, and that little hole should be mostly closed to your little crescent moon. And I guess that's about all I know about these things. The only other thing I'm not sure of, and I haven't found out, is when this is plugged in, what actuates, like what is telling the electricity to heat this up? Is there like a temperature sensor that says, okay, it's cold, we need more air, or it's warm enough, I'm gonna stop heating it? I really don't know how the electricity is regulated. Is it on all the time, heating it all the time the truck is running? Does it just heat it only when it senses that it's cold? That I don't know. If somebody knows, I would love to hear the answer. So there you go.